Hey, peace and blessings, family. It's Nero here. In this video, I want to talk with you guys today about the planets and the signs, more specifically the sun in this video, and what that's dealing with, how the sun works through the signs, or the signs, or, or the signs, pairing up with the sun. You get what I mean. I'll explain it. And then another way, when I start to talk about it, if you're familiar with astrology, to the extent of just knowing like planets, houses, and signs, um, you'll get all of it. Sorry about that. If this camera tends to shake a bit, that's because it's a dog that I don't know when to sit down. So yeah, just want to let you guys know that if you see this camera tending to wobble at times, that's just a dog. But yeah. Anyway, let's not get distracted. Let's focus on this video and let's talk about sun and signs, right? So first sign is first, or first placement is first, whatever. And yeah, that's gonna be the sun in Aries. So the sun in Aries, for the most part, sun represents your actions and your wants. Without getting into too much detail, and Aries is a fire sign, and we know fire deals with creativity and imagination and expression of those things. So, and then we know that did we say cardinal too? Did we say cardinal fire sign? If we didn't, there's cardinal too. So cardinal simply just means the leading and leading, the initiator, the creator. And so this means a person's actions is conscious, because sun also represents conscious awareness. And for the most part, this means that a person's actions and their wants is going to be focused on, creating their own vision, and not only creating their own vision, but like, um, taking, being a leader, when it comes to, their actions, things like that. But I don't necessarily have to talk about just like the planets and the signs, because I mean, the actual sign itself, and more, to get more in depth with it, because in my opinion, it's kind of shallow, at least on some things, but that's just me. And more so, I like to say that because, you really don't want to talk about the signs until you really don't want to just, I mean, you can talk about the signs, but it's really just best to talk about and this is if you're familiar with not only the signs of the zodiac themselves, but the houses and the planets, because that's really the energies for the sign comes from. So, when we're talking about planets and the signs, you really want to know these things, and that'll really explain why these planets work this way in these signs. So, yeah, and then what I was saying earlier, this is the parts where the more in-depth approach is going to come in. And if I didn't say it well, we're at that point now. So yeah, we're still talking about Sun and Aries. So Sun and Aries, if you're familiar with the chart, even if you don't have even if you don't have any Sun Mars aspects, due to the fact that Aries is ruled by Mars, if you still have Sun and Aries, it'll seem like, you know, um, it'll seem like a Sun conjunct Mars and a conjunction, and that's where the example of planets and the signs, planets and signs will be like a planet conjunct uh, the planet that the sign is ruled over. Like I s- if and like I said, if you're familiar with astrology and things like this, you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, with that being said, we know that Aries is ruled by Mars. So Sun in Aries is like Sun conjunct Mars. And what does this mean? For the most part, Mars being a planet that likes to, Mars being the planet of fight or flight, and passions, desires, and what's other things, being forceful. And it's also another planet that deals with like, our it's also a planet that deals with sex drive too, and life force, just like the sun. But don't want to get into too much details about that because we still got 11 other signs to do. So yeah, with the sun and with the sun in Aries, or the sun in Aries, or you could also look at like the aspect of sun conjunct Mars. A person's actions are going to be very Martian. What does this mean? A person's actions are going to be very, you know, passionate, very forceful, aggressive, and driven, and also what's another word? we'll just leave it like that to not get too confusing. So that's another way to look at like the sun. Sun in Aries. A person's actions is not only going to be like leader oriented and initiating, but it's going to be done more so in like a very forceful and passionate and driven way. Things like that with with the sun in Aries. And then knowing this is knowing these things, this is why Aries in particular, sun sign Aries, or and it could also be people who have like Aries stelliums too, but we're not really that deep into this yet. But yeah, it could also be a person who is like uh, for the most part, this is why people with Aries sun sign tend to be very impulsive or aggressive, very action oriented, driven, passionate, forceful, because they have that Martian influence going on with their sun sign. Even if they don't have Sun conjunct Mars, we still got to know that Sun in any sign is like Sun in aspect is the planet ruling over the sign. So I always remember that, and it'll really explain why those actions are like that. So yeah, and I did think about actually doing the videos, all of them in one, but it really is just best to do it all separately so we don't overwhelm oneself. But yeah. Oh, and then another way of looking at Sun in Aries, if this was still a little bit confusing, you could also look at it like Sun in the first house, because first house also rules over Aries too. So when I get into planets in the houses too, it'll pretty much be doing the same thing. But I'll probably be using that as a quick example in all the sun signs videos, because yeah, you can kind of interchange it so quickly when talking about the sun in the first house. It means that a person's actions and wants and conscious awareness is going to be focused on what first house energy, also known as Aries. And you could also say, Sun making an aspect or conjunction Mars yet again. So that just means that their actions and conscious awareness and their wants is going to be focused on what things dealing with their their personality and what they what they're here to do. And then keyword what they're here to do. A doing is always associated. What a person's here to do, and doing is an action. Action. Action is like being forceful and expressive. Being forceful and expressive is what can be related to like that the cardinal modality, like the cardinal energy, cardinal temperament. So it all goes hand in hand. So yeah. So you could also, if you want to, look at it as like Sun in the first house as well, because Aries is also ruled by the first house, along with being ruled by Mars. So yeah, if your Sun in Aries, Sun in the first house, got the aspect Sun conjunct Mars, and that could just mean that your Sun is in a certain sign and your Mars is in the same sign as your Sun, so that works too. Y'all get what I'm talking about in this video. So yeah, and apologies if it sounded confusing, but like I always say, if you have anything that you'd like to if there's any confusion, please feel free to ask questions so I can so I can clear that up, because I know how I tend to get a bit all over the place in my videos. So never be afraid to ask, and more so importantly because this is what's most important. If you got any feedback or criticism, to add, please add that, because I'm always willing to learn. I got knowledge, but there's always people who have other things to add, help me out with, because we're all here to learn from one another and, share and compromise with one another. So, yeah. And ultimately, we all need each other in one way or another. So, I never forget that. But yeah, with that being said, you guys, this is gonna be my take on the sun, the sign of Aries, or more so the sun in the sign of Aries. And yeah, with that being said, I'll talk to you guys in the next video where I talk about the sun and the sign of Taurus. So yeah, be ready for that. And until then, I love you guys. Talk to you guys later. Peace.